G'day riders, this is Mr Kiwi Rider.
And Mrs Kiwi Rider.
Today we're going to talk about some of the reasons why Mrs Kiwi Rider decided to learn to ride a motorcycle. One thing I did want to ask, it was about your thoughts and perceptions that you had about the physical, aspects of riding a motorcycle before, you even thought about learning how to ride.
I think it's interested me for maybe longer than I actually realised, but I've always been put off wanting to learn to ride a motorcycle because it looks so hard. It looks hard because you've got two hands doing I don't know what, because I didn't know, because I didn't ride, and 2 feet doing I don't know what, so you've got to coordinate your hands and your feet, and I just thought, well, I'm not that coordinated, I couldn't possibly, it'd be too hard to learn. It looks technical, looks hard, you got to balance, I don't know, it just looks scary. Yeah, intimidating.
Yeah. I remember when I was a lot younger, thinking, oh man, I really was so interested in motorcycles and I really wanted to ride, but I was the same. I'm like, it looks really involved. I'm not sure I could even learn how to do that.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah. And it wasn't until, 10 years ago that I finally reached that point in life where it's like, what the hell am I talking about? If other people can ride a motorcycle, I can ride a motorcycle.
And I think that's the point that I got to. I felt the same. I felt if other people can do it, then I can do it. I just have to figure out how and give myself the time to learn.
I remember your journey began when I asked you, were you interested in learning to ride a motorcycle? And you said yes at that time. So can you tell us a bit about that?
I was interested in learning and I was interested in riding and I liked the idea of it. So I said, yeah, I'm interested. But I still had some nerves and I had some reservations, I suppose, around the actual learning process. But the first step was just to say yes, I was interested.
That made me very excited, I have to say. I liked the idea of having a wife that also rode motorcycles. I remember before we bought a bike for you to learn on, you did some lessons with an instructor.
Yep,
Can you tell us a bit about that?
I did 2 lessons. So we booked in, never been on a bike before ever, in terms of riding. I'd been on the back years ago, but never ridden a bike myself ever. And so I booked in a lesson and I sat on the bike and he told me about the real basics. And I had 2 lessons and I had enough to know the basics on, and I thought, right, well, the best way I'm going to learn now is to just do it and just practice on my own. So that's why we bought a bike. The way to get your license in New Zealand, there's a specific, what they call a basic handling test, and it's a series of circles, 3 circles in a row, that you have to demonstrate that you can have your basic handling of a motorcycle. And so I knew that I would have to pass this certain basic handling test, so I was practicing all the things that I had to learn for that. And in New Zealand, you have to master the basic handling before you're even allowed to get your learner's license and even get out on a road. So yeah, it took me quite some time to feel confident enough to even go for that basic handling test.
So another reason you mentioned why you decided to learn to ride a motorcycle was comfort, or perhaps rather lack of comfort. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So when we bought the bike for me to learn on, obviously we would go out together and you would ride and I'd be on the back, which I really enjoyed. But the back seat, the pillion passenger seat, is not very comfortable for a female. I felt that the position I was sitting in, kind of, leaning forward to make sure you're holding on to the person in front of you, and your legs are up on the, what are those foot peg things called? Yeah, those. And just, I don't know what it was, but I felt like all my weight was like kind of sitting right on my pubic bone. It was really uncomfortable. And like, a 10-minute ride was fine, but for riding half an hour or an hour, it was not comfortable. And plus I'm getting older, and for whatever reason my knee would sometimes ache and hurt, and I wanted to stretch my knee out and I couldn't when I was on the back like that. So yeah, the comfort thing wasn't there as a pillion passenger.
Yeah. And certainly the pillion seat that was on that bike wasn't I mean, it was only a short tripper, definitely, but we were going on slightly longer trips, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, so yeah.
And that was kind of my limit. I was kind of like, it wasn't fun for me then after
Damn,
that.
man. Yeah.
I was just like, I just want to get home and be comfortable again.
Another reason you mentioned for wanting to learn to ride was the fact that I rode. Tell us about that.
It was a nice thought to me that there was something that we could both do together if we both enjoyed it. And I was open to the idea that I would enjoy it. And I was open to the idea that maybe it wouldn't be for me, but I wanted to see. I wanted to try it. And I've got to say, from after those first couple of lessons that I had, and then when we bought the bike and I got to ride it on my own, in my own time, just practicing to get my basic handling, I got the bug straight away. I was like, this is fun. I was only going like so slow, just going round and round this car park, but I could see how fun it was going to be. I was like, I just want to get out on the road. Can we just skip this whole learning bit and can I just ride?
Yep.
I got the bug straight away.
I remember it was a chore often to get out to that car park. You know, I had to ride the bike over, you drove over, then you rode the bike. But once you were on that bike, I could see that you were just in such a happy place.
I really was. And it was a chore. And I didn't always look forward to it. And sometimes it felt like, you'd prompt me and I'd be like, I know I should. And, I kind of lacked motivation often because it seemed like an effort. And it kind of was. But every time I was there and I was doing it, I loved it. And so every time then that I came home and I thought about going back another time, I would just remember, but when I'm there, I like it. So it kind of was enough to keep me going.
Each time we went got progressively longer.
Yes.
Because you were just like, as
just
I say, so
enjoying
happy about, enjoying the ride.
Yeah.
So
and it kind of sucked because I didn't want to have to do these things that they were making me do in terms of, going around these circles a certain way in a certain order, and like they're quite tight circles I felt, for learning on, and it was still a nerve-wracking thing, thinking I've got to do this, but each time I practiced and I'd get a little bit better and I'd think I can do this, and it took longer than I thought it would, but man, I got to a point where I was confident and I'm like, yep, I can, I know I can.
You mentioned the idea of feeling safe, and that feeling safe actually helped you in your journey to learn to ride a motorcycle. What was that all about?
Well, when I was on the back of the bike with you, so when I was learning and hadn't got my license yet, being on the back of the bike was something fun we could still do together, and I always felt safe on the back of the bike with you because you never went like a hoon, you didn't just like, plant the foot and go really fast or try and show off. You just rode like a normal person, and there was nothing for me to fear. It wasn't a scary thing for me being on the back with you, and that made a big difference, I think, because in the past when I was quite a lot younger, I'd been on the back of a motorbike with some of my brother's friends, and they just like to show off and go fast, and that wasn't fun for me. But just cruising around with you, felt safe on the back, we weren't doing anything crazy, and that was enjoyable, and I felt safe, and that was probably another factor that made me consider getting my license more so than if you were just trying to show off.
And just finally, I wanted to ask what you might say to other women who were interested in riding but might have some reservations about it.
I honestly feel like my experience is no different to any other woman rider out there. I've spoken to quite a number of different women, different ages, that either have wanted to ride or considered riding and don't ride, or may have started riding. you know, about their experience, and they've had all the same fears and concerns and insecurities and things that I felt. I think the only difference is between us is that the ones that go ahead and just do it anyway get their license. I would just encourage you, if you're at all even remotely interested, just, you know, book in a lesson with someone that you know knows how to teach motorcycles, or have a lesson with someone you know and trust, like if it is your husband or partner or someone like that, someone that's got patience and can show you without, you know, trying to show off or anything. But give it a go in with an open mind and be willing to give yourself the time that you need, because there's no time limit, you can take your time. And I was really spurred on to finally just book in and get my license when a lady friend of mine, who I think I'd inspired her, and I told her I was going to go for my motorcycle license months and months before that, and she'd always been interested but thought she was too old. And I said, oh, you're never too old, you know, you should do it, and blah blah blah. And anyway, she ended up getting her license before me, and I was so ticked off. I was like, I've been working towards this, and I was right at the point where I was there, I just didn't have the confidence. And when I saw that she'd done it, I thought, I can do this. You know, so hook up with other women riders if you can find them, and get tips from them, and they will encourage you, and just be encouraged that, you know, take your time, but yeah, you can do it.
Absolutely. And one thing I just want to say is motorcycling isn't just for men, and in fact now there's heaps of women-only riding groups, riding clubs out there too that I can think of that are worldwide, are the Leeters and the Iron Lilies. That's a couple. I'm sure there's so many more. If you're at all thinking about riding, try and hook up with a female riding group, because they'll inspire you. They'll have the same stories about the reservations or the fears that you might have, and they'll inspire you and help you along your journey to be able to ride, because, you know, they're going to want to champion that in you.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
There's tons of women riders out there, and there's tons of information, and there's tons of support. You kind of feel very intimidated. Well, I know I did. It was an intimidating process, even just learning. And I thought, it looks so complicated, it looks so hard, but you can do it. It's actually not as hard as it looks. And just take your time and get that support. Go girls.
Yeah.
You got this.
Do the thing.
Do the thing.